From the archives of the great library of Arathes, Golden City of Elves, the wise scholars of Grey Sage present the unlikely and highly questionable accounts from those who were avowed witness. These are the suspenseful investigations of the human, Fraenk Neversleep, Arch-Preceptor of Blackroot. And now, the Neversleep Scrolls, Circle of the Mind Thief, written by Philip Walton. The story continues. Chapter 41. When the ex-wizard Valthor had told Fraenk that he didn't understand the true power of the Mind Thief, it was not as if he didn't believe the old elf because he had already seen and used it. But channeling the necklace's power to read someone else's thoughts, or even to split open their mind, was nothing compared to what it was like to have it turned upon you. Fraenk Neversleep found himself standing in the grand hall of the monarch's summer palace, staring into the face of his mortal enemy. Every action to get here had been his own. Every choice, every thought, every move was a result of applying the significant power of his own mind to resolve the problems of a district and his sworn-to lady. But now he was at a complete loss of autonomy. Fraenk could feel the magic surging to every corner of his brain, a deep and powerful thrum that asserted its own commands with almost no effort. Any attempt he made to regain his own mind, or even try to command some part of himself to move, was battered away as easily as one swats a fly. More terrifying still was that Fraenk could fully feel the presence of Farathiel Gingerglade inside with him. The elf was like a ghost moving through walls, unlocking secrets and uncovering everything that he believed to be the only place in the world that was truly safe. Fraenk suddenly felt pressure on his chest and an urgent need for air. But when he tried to inhale, his lungs wouldn't obey. Was the Mind Thief powerful enough to make a man suffocate himself? Apparently so, because no amount of effort could get himself to breathe. Then he felt something shift and he was gasping for air.
"Oh, sorry about that, Neversleep. I can't have you dying on me that way."
Gingerglade's voice came again from inside his head. It was loud, like the elf was standing right beside his ear. "Let me go!" Fraenk screamed back with his own thoughts.
"I don't think I will. I'm still going with my original plan to have the High Lord hack your ugly human head off with that sword. But he'll get to you in a moment. He's a little dizzy right now."
So the state of the other's mind can affect the one using the necklace, Fraenk thought.
"That's right. You definitely wouldn't want to use it on someone who was insane or diseased."
Gingerglade's reply came a moment later, and Fraenk had the terrible realization that there was no private thought, no internal plan. Nothing was safe from Gingerglade's reach.
"I think you finally understand now, Neversleep. I possess you. Any dirty plan you come up with, I'll know the moment you concoct it. There's nothing you can say or do to save yourself. And I'm going to make you stand there and stick out your neck while he swings the blade. Won't that be fun?"
A wave of panic and fear washed through him, and he could feel Gingerglade's delight.
"That's right. Be afraid. I want your fear."
Fraenk forced himself to be calm. There had to be some way out of this, even if Gingerglade could see and hear all of his thoughts. Some way to best him.
"You're welcome to try."
The elf cut in again. "Be quiet and let me think, Fart," Fraenk shot back, and was pleased to feel a ripple of annoyance from his enemy.
"Your mind is a fascinating place, Neversleep. So many juicy secrets in here, so much information that I can use. I wish I had more time to explore. Look at this."
An image popped up in Frank's memory of the lighthouse and the Lindblood woman. How was Gingerglade doing this?
"I can dig through every part of your mind, see? Now I know where the girl is. You've shown me right to her. I'll make sure we kill her this time." "Oh, yes. And thank you for tipping me off about the fool ex-wizard who lives there. We'll definitely be prepared when we storm the place with enough arcane lords to turn it to ash and cinders."
Frank's thoughts and memories were flying faster now, and every time he tried to hide or conceal something, Gingerglade smashed through like a savage wolf tearing apart a bunny.
"What else? What else? What about your district, Neversleep? Where is it vulnerable? I can see all your secret hiding places, your stashes of booze and your many hoards of gold. Don't worry, I'll make good use of it all.
Images of locations all over his district flashed in his head. Every secret Fraenk had was being violently ripped out of him. Fraenk was breathing faster. He had to stop Gingerglade from going any further, but there was nothing he could do.
And your Lady Blackroot? Where is... Oh, this is interesting. She's so weak and frail. And so many ways that misfortune could befall her. I can see them all because you've thought about each one. And you've been worried she's going to die. Oh, Neversleep, you actually care about her. I didn't think you cared about anyone but yourself. A pity you never took the opportunity to tell her. How sweet that would have been.
Gingerglade cooed malevolently. Fraenk suddenly felt himself stand up straighter. His body took 3 steps and turned all the way around, so he was now looking at the opposite side of the room. All eyes were still fixed on them.
Shall we go over and tell her now before you die?
Gingerglade asked.
No, never mind, I don't care.
Fraenk could see High Lord Whiteleaf standing steady now. He waved off his palace guards, who would probably all find themselves reprimanded and reassigned after their failure to intervene in this evening's events. Not that it would do him much good with his head chopped off and probably rotting on a spike outside the city gate. An odd sensation washed through this mind as Fraenk felt the magic shift. It weakened its hold somewhat, and he felt another presence. He watched as Crispin Whiteleaf stiffened. Once again, Gingerglade took hold of the High Lord. Fraenk could feel their 3 minds all linked in some way. High Lord Whiteleaf turned and started walking their way. He smiled and waved at those present like he had done something heroic or was about to. Whiteleaf gave the air a few experimental chops with his blade, then fixed his eyes directly on Fraenk. Even though Gingerglade remained in firm control of the magic, there was something about this connection that Fraenk felt could be exploited. Now, while he was distracted with the elf, it was Frank's only chance. "Lord Whiteleaf, stop! Don't do this!" Fraenk forced his mind at the space where the new presence had entered. The effect was immediate. Crispin Whiteleaf staggered backward like he'd been struck. The control of Gingerglade too lost its intensity, and Fraenk could suddenly move on his own. But then his body froze as Gingerglade came slamming back into his brain.
None of that now!
The elf roared. Fraenk felt his body go rigid as all his muscles spasmed at once. The pain was total and blinding. Fraenk wasn't sure how long it lasted, but when he could see and breathe and think again, High Lord Whiteleaf was standing right in front of him. He had the sword resting on Frank's shoulders and staring at him with a sort of sad, apologetic look on his face. Fraenk felt a wave of exhaustion. The exertion and also the bleeding made him want to collapse, but of course he couldn't. And now he was going to die.
I didn't want you to miss this part, Neversleep.
Farathiel Gingerglade's inner voice said viciously.
I'll be sure to let you go at the last moment. I wouldn't want to have my mind shattered like you did to that poor human in Rounderville. That would be bad for me.
Then Fraenk felt an acceptance that this would be his death as he looked back at High Lord Whiteleaf. They were both powerless in all this by forces beyond their control. He returned a look that told Crispin Whiteleaf, which said it wasn't his fault, and that Fraenk forgave him. It could have been the same look that the pig Henrietta had given him when he was a boy. Tears sprang into his eyes. For sorrow, for regret, for grief. He could hear an angry voice that sounded like Gingerglade trying to scream at him, but it was distant and unimportant. This memory, so primal and powerful, sent a wave of indescribable emotion through him. Fraenk could see the effect wasn't just with him either. Whiteleaf was crying as well. Fat, round tears that spilled down his smooth cheeks. Fraenk couldn't see Gingerglade, but he could feel the elf flailing and battered by a storm of anguish and sadness. Then another memory came from that day, unbidden but even more powerful. It started as a sound and sent an icy wave of fear through him. It was the unholy squeal of a pig, the traumatic memory that he had kept locked away, wanting never to think about again, was coming for him, breaking down the door of his mind, just like it had done in his childhood home.
No, Fraenk! Stop! What are you doing? What is this?
Gingerglade's panicked voice cried out, terrified. Fraenk had seen this before, so he knew what was going to happen, but the elf was totally unprepared. The squeal of the boar was loud and close, just on the other side. Boom! Fraenk could hear the impact clearly in his mind. A cold sweat covered him, and his mind rebelled, wanting to be anywhere but here, to recall anything but this. He knew he had to keep going, though. It was the only way he would be free. Fraenk could see Whiteleaf, too, was experiencing this as well, for the look in his eyes was wide with terror. But there was nothing to be done about it. In his memories, Fraenk Neversleep was once again the small boy, huddled in his house with his mother and sister as the monster outside smashed its way in. His own terror flowing out into Gingerglade, who was making a high-pitched, keening whine. There was nowhere he could go to escape the beast that was now coming through the door towards them, the monster with the body of a man and the head of a hog, whose eyes glowed red and blood dripped from its butcher's apron. Its inhuman squeal became a man's scream, or rather a chorus of screams, as both elves shrieked. Farathiel Gingerglade's frosted hands shot up to cover his eyes, releasing the necklace. Fraenk felt the hold on him immediately fall away and his body collapsed, which was very much to his advantage, because High Lord Crispin Whiteleaf had raised the sword over his head and was swinging it down with all his might. Fraenk thought the blow was aimed at him initially, and flinched as the screaming elf charged forward. But he leapt over Frank's collapsing body and went straight for the one behind him. Farathiel Gingerglade lowered his hands just in time to see the High Lord lean his entire force into a vicious downward slice. The sword cleaved through cloth, flesh and bone of Gingerglade's shoulder, stopping in the middle of his chest, right at the point where the elf's heart was now taking its final flailing beat. The arch-preceptor of Fernbrook made a gurgling sound as red blossomed and spilled from the cut. Fraenk turned to catch Gingerglade's eyes, wide with terror and confusion, before he dropped to the floor. A collective mix of gasps, shrieks and shouts all erupted from the crowd at the same time. Lord Crispin Whiteleaf turned to look at Fraenk. There was a wild, untethered expression which seemed to suggest something was definitely wrong with him.
"I did it, Neversleep,"
he breathed.
"I killed the mad boar. I killed the mad boar."
A moment later, a mass of bodies crashed upon both men. Palace guards were all scrambling to stop this calamity from going any further. Fraenk had no energy to resist, as he was thrown roughly onto his belly and thick iron manacles locked around his wrist. He took a few punches and kicks as he was pulled to his feet.
"Throw him in the cells. He'll be hanged in the morning,"
a red-faced captain of the palace guard shouted.
"Wait."
Arch-partisan Brightrock broke in, fighting his way to the middle of the scrum.
"This man is my prisoner."
"And what is his crime, Captain?"
Fraenk heard Lady Blackroot's stern voice shout as she also approached, mean as any shade scourge.
"Attempted regicide, assaulting the High Lord."
The captain barked back.
"And this is a matter of the palace, my Lord Brightrock."
"You're not even questioning any of this. There's foul magic at play."
Brightrock leaned in and snarled through his broken mouth.
"Impossible. You yourself oversaw security, arch-partisan."
"The necklace," Fraenk said weakly.
"That's right. They smuggled in a magical amulet right there."
Lady Blackroot jabbed a finger at the individual who had just picked it up. Lord Fernbrook had somehow slipped into the crowd, found the mind thief on the floor, and his hand was just about to close around it. When all eyes fell to him, he raised it pinched between two fingers like it gave off a redolent odour. Olwyn Brightrock snatched it from him with an accusatory scowl. He held it up for examination. The stone was flat and dull. Its unburnished chain had not even a hint of shine.
"That's nothing. A trinket? It doesn't even interest me."
The captain's eyes barely looked at it.
"He was using it to enter my mind,"
another voice said, and all went silent. They turned to see High Lord Crispin Whiteleaf stepping through the parting sea of guards.
"My actions were not my own. I didn't want to—"
Whiteleaf broke off, looking down to where the body of Gingerglade was soaking in an ever-widening pool of blood.
"He made me kill, and,
Crispin Whiteleaf trailed off, his voice haunted.
One has to wonder, What other actions my High Lord was unwittingly compelled to do?
Lady Blackroot shot Lord Fernbrook an accusatory glare.
The High Council will certainly investigate.
Crispin Whiteleaf reached out suddenly, putting a hand on Fraink's shoulder.
Sir, I'm so sorry.
He said, then turned quickly to the captain.
Release him. He saved my life.
But my lord,
Another word, Captain, and I'll create a new lowest rank just to demote you to it.
Whiteleaf snapped. Fraenk felt the cuffs come off him and the guards let him go. High Lord Crispin Whiteleaf extended his hand.
I'm told this is how humans say thank you.
He said. It is, my lord, Fraenk replied, taking his hand. Whiteleaf gave Frank's arm a quivering wobble, like the dying throes of a silverbow salmon. In spite of his weariness, Fraenk couldn't help but smile.
Shake hands. Did I do it right?
Crispin asked. Perfect. Thank you for listening. Tune in next week for another exciting episode. And remember, the learned scholars of Greysage caution you that the veracity of these events remains unproven. Now go safe in the light of the powers, until our hands clasp again.